Thank you for tuning in to another episode of my Veterans to Success podcast. You probably know by now, my mission is to help 1 million veterans and entrepreneur business owners achieve the dreams, goals, and aspirations they deserve. That is why I created the Veterans to Success podcast, because I get to interview guys, men and women, who want to share their fascinating stories with you about their time before, during and after their time in the military, so you can benefit and overcome your challenges. So sit back, relax, and get ready to be mesmerized, astounded, and entertained. Hello and welcome to another episode of Veterans to Success, the podcast where I get to speak to seemingly ordinary people with extraordinary stories. And what I want to talk about today is with Paul Wilcox, otherwise known as Wilco. Hello, mate. How are you doing?
Very well, thanks, Joe. Thank you for having me on.
No, it's an absolute pleasure. So, you know the score. We've had a good chinwag. I know a lot about you. You know a lot about me. And we both agree that we're nutters, right? So, let's go back to when you were a lad, right? When you were a lad, way before you joined the army. What was going on in your life?
So the big love of my life at that time was playing golf. I started around about the age of 10. At that time, Nick Faldo and Sandy Lyle were very big names. Ian Woosnam were very big names. Yeah. And they were my heroes, along with a few Americans, Tom Watson and Seve Ballesteros, can't forget him. And so I grew up with watching those people on the television and practicing in the back garden with my dad stood over me, you know, keep putting me into these awkward, contortionistic sort of positions, trying to how to hit this plastic golf ball. And that very quickly became my single passion. I did other things. I liked art. I was quite creative, like drawing and painting and stuff. But golf was my thing, and whenever I could, I was out playing golf.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
fantastic. And you had 3 brothers, didn't you?
Yeah. So eldest of 4 lads. There's roughly sort of 18 months, 2 years between each of us. My parents moved around a lot with my dad's job, and every time we moved, I ended up with a brother. I'm not sure what was going on, but yeah. So we moved all over the country, really. Originally from Blackpool, lived in St Anne's, then went over to Norfolk, then Derbyshire. Eventually settling in Cheshire, and stayed there for many years. Before they decided to move again to North Shropshire, but yeah, it was 4 lads had a great time. You know, our sort of pastime was beating each other up, which was quite good fun. It was all done in jest and a bit of play. Quite strange, really, because fast forward sort of 20 years ago. 20 years from the time when we were kids. Yeah. I went home, and me and my next brother down decided to go and beat the younger one up. But we're all in our sort of mid-20s, and it was like a scene out that film, 7 Brides for 7 Brothers, where there's lots of fists and stuff going. My mum's running around the house going, Jim, they're fighting. But it was just like being back when we were kids, you know, roughing and tumbling and stuff. But it got a little bit serious.
All right. Well,
not in a nice way, but
bit of fun,
the youngest one was all of a sudden he developed some strength. I don't know where he got that from, but he didn't want to be. He must have been eating Weetabix, mustn't he? Right. So the thing is, right, that there was a period. So you had, I mean, you were a hardworking family. You know, your dad grafted. Your mum was bringing 4 kids up. And she did her bit as well as a music teacher. And then at the age of 17, you decided to follow your dream, didn't you?
And what?
Yeah. So when I left school, I left school at 16. I did poorly. I didn't do very well at all with my O levels as they were at the time, and I was contemplating what to do. And you have to remember none of my family hadn't been through this. I was the first going through this.
Yeah.
So in terms of that fantastic parental advice that you're going to get, and you think you've got your life mapped out for you. They didn't know what to do. And my mum said to me, "You're not academic. You probably," because I was thinking about staying on and going into the sixth form. "You're not academic. You're probably better off going to get a job." So at this point, we're looking at 1985, and I, with me leaving school in the summer of 85, coincides with us moving away from Cheshire to North Shropshire, with my dad again getting a new job, working for a different local authority, but doing the same role.
Right.
So I was actually unemployed then after leaving school for about 6 to 8 months, and my mum had enough, and she dragged me down to the careers advice, the careers place, and it was when YTSs were in, and I got a YTS.
I remember them. Yeah.
Yeah, I got a YTS in butchery, and all of a sudden, I found it. I didn't. I wasn't a butcher. My dad was a butcher, and then became a meat inspector. So he knew beef, and he knew everything about the different types of animals that we all eat. But for me, butchery wasn't easy. But I had my sights set, and this was the seed of me starting to have dreams and passion and ambition, because I wanted to become a bacteriologist.
Right.
And I said to my lecturers, I understand what we're doing here, but I don't want to be a butcher. I want to do something else. We're in the meat industry, and this is when these seeds were then sown. Then, what shattered that? Because I was loving it, and I was coming home from butchering, from working in the shop.
Yeah.
And coming home from the college course, then the one-day course we did at Shrewsbury, and studying because rather than being forced to do it, all of a sudden I wanted to do it. So there was a sea change in me, in fairness. But what shattered all that was receiving a letter from the professional golfer there where I used to be a member. And his assistant had left to go to another golf course in south of England. And I'd done some Saturday work for him during the holidays when we lived in Chester. And he said, "Do you want to come and be my assistant?" And it was a great opportunity. And I think the parents were quite happy because, a life in the meat industry compared to one of being a professional golfer, they're chalk and cheese. And but everyone thinks that a professional golfer is a guy that goes around winning thousands of pounds on a circuit. There are two types. Your club pro does lessons, sells merchandise, and possibly gets a salary from the golf course. And then there's your tour pros. And so I was quite happy to be a club professional. So I started to do that career, and it meant I had to leave home at the age of, I just turned 17. I turned 17 in the January, and I started in the April.
That's a pretty young age, really, to pack your bag.
To be honest, I was homesick. I was in digs, but I was working just short of 80 hours a week in the summer, so I didn't have time to sort of dwell on it, and I was on £45 a week.
Wow.
So,
hey, but Rockefeller, eat your heart out. Yeah.
So yeah, and it was tough, but I got the opportunity to meet all sorts of people from all sorts of different backgrounds in life. So you're upper class posh people who'd had not necessarily been born with a silver spoon in their mouth, but
we were doing all right.
You were doing all right, to really hard working class people. Because at that time, we've got Shell just up the road from Chester at Ellesmere Port.
That's right. Yeah.
And in the 80s, there were people in Shell, they were getting good salaries. But they were, working class people with really good salaries and good knowledge in the chemical industry, and they were joining golf clubs. So I was meeting a wealth of, or a good cross section of the society, that where I lived, and for me, that's where I started to develop my people skills.
Yeah. So what changed then?
What changed? I didn't like the idea of being dependent on customers.
Right.
So there was in the shop, in the pro shop, there was me and the boss, and so he had income streams coming in from different things: salary from the golf club, doing club repairs, selling products, and teaching. But when the course was shut because of bad weather, or you never saw anyone. Just the fact that he's competing with discount golf shops that were springing up all over the place, who were making very little profit on selling merchandise, but where they were making their profit was selling lots of stuff. And we counted in 87, we counted 1 year, we lost the sale of about 21 different sets of clubs that we saw members with that hadn't been bought from the shop. And it was me thinking, and it's quite a mature way of thinking, really, and I don't know why I did it, but I think I don't want to be beholden to people. I want to be trained to do a job well, and be paid for doing it. And I always had at that time this romantic idea of joining the police, and I've been interested in police programs.
That's the first time I've ever heard joining the police being classed as romantic.
Yeah, well, I was a big Starsky and Hutch and Cagney and Lacey watcher, and so loved those sorts of programs. Never really got into the bill in those days. I think I didn't even know it existed, although it was on. And so I was brought up on American TV shows, American cop shows. But so I had this romantic idea of being a cop, and but was too young to do anything about it. So I decided that in '87 that I was going to try and join the police, and I applied to my local force, Cheshire, and I got knocked back. And I realised then that educationally I was weak, and all of a sudden,
just hang on a second, mate. Right. So how did that make you feel when you got knocked back?
Oh, I was gutted.
Because I mean, what was the way they did it.
It was the way they did it.
Yeah, is just gloss over, because you're talking about it now and it was so long ago. But at that time, you got that letter, you opened it went.
Yeah, well, up until this point, the only time I'd ever failed at anything was when I opened my exam results when I was 16.
I've been there,
yeah. And so and that didn't really resonate with me, because I couldn't understand the bigger picture at 16, you see. So when I applied for the police, being told I wasn't good enough, it really hurt. And the way it was done was you had a full morning, a full day of tests and things, and then certain names were called out. Oh, you had a physical exam as well, PT test. Yeah. Names were called out. We went into this room, and then they told us very cut and dry, you've failed, and you're not allowed to reapply for X amount of time. And it was a case of, because I told a few people, I'm joining the police. I thought it was a foregone conclusion. And I realised, flipping hell, there's a bit more to this. So it was my first experience of failure, and I didn't like it.
So what happened? What did you do?
So I, at the time, because I knew lots of cops at the golf club, because we had a police society group that based themselves there. One of those cops was a former Royal Military Police veteran.
Right. Okay.
And at the time, running parallel to this, I'd already joined the Special Constabulary, so I was a volunteer cop.
Okay.
And so, and one of the guys in the specials was also joining the Royal Military Police. So I had two different sort of sources of information about the Royal Military Police, and I thought, you know what, I think I'm going to give that a go, because if I can join and show a potential employer like a police force that I can do the job, maybe that's enough to convince them to let me in. It's a bit naive, really, thinking about it.
Yeah, but
this
I mean,
is the
it's amazing how you join the dots that aren't even there.
Yeah, this is the 19-year-old me thinking, you see. So that's what I did. And do you know what? I can't believe it now, because I prior to coming on to talk to you, I was sort of like having a few thoughts. They recruited me at Chester in 2.5 months, from walking in as an inquiry to me getting my rail warrant to go down to Chichester. It was 2.5 months. And it had it so streamlined. I mean, they were desperate for direct entrance, and and they tried to convince me to go into other parts of the army where they were really short, and I went in there with the pure intention of joining the military police, and that's what I got.
That's quick, because mine was, because my dad wouldn't sign the papers when I was 16, so I waited. My 18th birthday, I was straight down to Liverpool. I want to be a soldier.
Yeah. Well, do you know? I think if it had been longer, if it had been longer, I might have taught myself out of it.
Right.
And the fact that I'd committed, and what I found with myself, you talk about personal qualities. I don't necessarily commit to stuff quickly, because when I do, I want to see it through.
Yeah. And do you know what? I just want to, because when I've just said about I waited till I was 18, because my dad said to me, "You'll never make it." What was that conversation you had with your dad?
Yeah, so everything was happening very quickly, 2.5 months from start to finish. I realised, crikey, I better tell someone here that I'm joining up, because my brother down from me, and the next one down from me, he'd joined the Paras about 18 months, 2 years before me, and had a bad time, and he'd done more soldiering in his 3 months, 4 months in the Paras than I ever did in 5 years in the Royal Military Police, because of the level of training you get. So I went home. I went home on a day off, and to tell my mum and my dad. My dad said to me, "Son," he said, "you'll never make a soldier as long as you've got a hole in your ass." So it was then I realised
that's a good pep talk, isn't it?
Yeah, well, it is, and it was a case of, well, I've given up a job in my career with the Professional Golfers Association, and it was a good career. I've given that up, and now I don't feel I've got any other support. Failure, which I'd experienced earlier that year when I tried to join Cheshire, failure was not a resort now. I had to get through the training, and it was 23 weeks of training.
And at that time when you were going in, there was a lot going on, wasn't there?
So the IRA, the troubles in Ireland were really quite bad at the time.
I remember.
Soldiers being blown up and killed, and I think at that time, at our age group, we got a little bit blasé. It was always on the news. You had your bombing campaigns in London. You've always seen some sort of big bomb go off, and the police called, and it became the norm, and I think youngsters of today would be quite shocked. And
because it was, and I remember, because I served in the regs 81 to 88, and there was a lot going on in that time.
So that put a very sobering thought, bearing in mind in the RMP you did three postings in any order. You always did Ireland, Germany, or the UK, and it was a bit of a lottery, really, which theatre you were going to be posted out to. It just so happened I went out to Germany first, but I had there was guys in my squad that went out to Ireland, and some stayed in the UK. But I count myself lucky that I got the opportunity to go to Germany.
Yeah, I remember that. It's like a roll call, isn't it? Where you all on parade and they just call your name and say, right, and just call a country out or a barracks or whatever. Yeah. A couple got Gibraltar. I never got that. I think one got Hong Kong as well.
Yeah, well, the idea was you do those 3 postings, and then you'd get a sunshine posting. You see, that was how it sort of roughly worked.
So you tip up at the barracks, and what sort of stuff's going on? Because you've got your basic military stuff, haven't you? And then you've got your specialist stuff, because you've got to learn how to put people, haven't you?
Do you know, I still remember it now as clear as day. You could imagine the situation when my brother went to join the Paras. We had a family party to wave him off.
Yeah.
When I went to join the military police, there was me and a mate, and he took me to Chester railway station at 3:15 in the morning to catch the very slow train down to London, because those fast trains didn't exist.
Right.
And I spent 14 hours going from Chester to Chichester. And I think at that time, I don't think I'd even been to London. So to get across from Euston to, I think it was Piccadilly. Right. I can't remember now, but it was what I had to move across. I had to go from Euston to another station to get a train out to Chichester, you see. And I felt like a flipping country mouse. But you turn up, and you're showing your barrack room, and you're showing your bed. I'm in a room full of lads. Well, I grew up with lads, so brothers, so it's not a problem. And then you're told to put your tracksuit on, because you turn up in a suit, and the next thing, someone's shouting block jobs. So I thought, what the bloody hell's going on? So you go out into the corridor. There's 44 of us all in a line, and Wilcock, left-hand shitter. Sorry, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that.
Yeah, you can say that.
I'm thinking, but what do you mean? You've got to clean that left-hand toilet. And I'm scrubbing this toilet, and I have to have a laugh. I'm giggling to myself, thinking, I've come here to be a Royal Military Police NCO, and I'm cleaning the flipping toilet, and no one told me I had to do this.
It's all part of the training, isn't it? Yeah.
And so it was
with a toothbrush or what?
No, I had a proper toilet brush.
Oh, that's flipping paradise.
Luxury. But I got jailed the next day because I still wanted DNA testing on this, but there was a pube found on it. On my toilet. And the corporal shouting, "What is that?" And I'm going, "It's a pubic hair. It's a pubic hair, corporal. Why is it there? I don't have a clue." Jailed.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I remember we were pressing our kit. Well, I wasn't. I pressed my kit just before the room inspection, and they come down and buy your beds. And the bloke who borrowed the iron gave it to me and put it in a top box. Still hot, full of water. And they obviously sussed it, the directive staff.
Yeah.
In, the NCO, and then the sergeant was strict as anything. And he looked at my top box, and I was stood at the foot of the bed, attention facing outwards. And he got it, and I heard this drip, drip, drip. He said, "O'Connor, what's this?" I turned around and just said, "Stupid answer. Water, Sergeant." My feet did not touch the deck. I was off to jail, tick-tock, tick-tock, doing pokey drill with a drill shell up above my head. Oh, happy days. So you get through training, and you've probably cleaned a few bogs by now.
Oh, yeah.
And
so the last 4 weeks before passing out, I got married on a 48-hour pass.
Oh, well done.
Yeah, as you do. And so I pass out, 2 weeks disembarkation leave. I think it was called disembarkation leave. And then I'm out to Germany. My wife came out to join me about a month later. We go to Dusseldorf, where 101 Private Company is. And
Nice.
say again.
Nice. It's okay.
Yeah, Dusseldorf was a beautiful town. We lived in a fantastic estate called Goldsheim. Yeah, Goldsheim, near the Rhine. And
Lovely place around there.
and yeah, we jumped. We were shown by everyone was so friendly, and the community was fantastic. We, in fairness, I don't think we'd ever experienced anything like it. The military community, how it pulls together. We were in a block of 6, so opposite me was an engineers guy. He was a postie.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but the posties were part of the engineers.
Yeah.
Then we had a RMP, 2 RMP above me, and then there was a dentist. I'm not sure. I don't think he was medical corps, but he was a dentist, and then another RMP guy. So they kept these sort of corps to rather than mixing military police up with infantry or proper soldiers, because otherwise there'd be problems probably. But yeah, we would jump on a tram. The tram was about 5 minutes walk away. You're in Dusseldorf, beautiful city. We couldn't believe how lucky we were. We didn't realize how lucky we were until we got posted away. But yeah, a lovely time. And I like the Germans as well. I mean, they didn't necessarily have our same sense of humor, but
no. Yeah, the good people. I had a great time when I was in Osnabrück, and Sennelager. I made some really good.
Yeah. Well, so the end of the war probably happened. Second World War happened 45. Dusseldorf was liberated by the Americans in that time. And but in every military police duty room had a German interpreter, because we would get soldiers being locked up by the German police. Those police reports had to be translated.
Yeah.
So we could then follow out the instructions. Maybe go and interview a soldier. It was quite funny. You used to get quite often the sound of British footsteps could be heard leaving the scene. British sound of British. I don't know what a British footstep sounds like, but apparently the Germans did. But speaking, some of our
maybe it left a Union Jack in the footprint or something.
Yeah.
Who knows?
Yeah, but some of the interpreters were really interesting people to talk to, and had been children growing up in the war,
Right.
and they didn't have it well. They were starving, and I remember one lady, one of the interpreters, a lady called Ruth, telling me how when the Americans came to Dusseldorf, they were given a chocolate, and she hadn't had chocolate for years. They was starving, hungry. So, it puts a very different perspective on your, on history when you hear it from the German civilians who were.
It does.
There. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. 91 came, and I'd already started applying for forces. So I'd signed up to do 3 years, or you sign up to do 22 with the option.
That's right. Yeah.
And so my 3-year point had gone, and I was still in, and and I was now a full corporal. And but I decided that time was now right. I had a daughter. The time was now right for me to look at the next step in my journey. So I started to apply to police forces, and I had at that time I'd prepared 18 letters, and I'd sent them out.
Wow.
To the different recruiting departments of these.
So you're already thinking about the next stage, aren't you?
Yeah.
In your life,
absolutely,
planning and preparation, really. Just before we go on, because I just clocked the fact that after 3-4 years, you're a full screw corporal.
Full screw.
Is the rank to thought? Was it because you really were filing up the rank structure? Or is it because RMPs need to have rank above?
So you pass out with a tape on your arm.
Right, okay.
You pass out as a lance corporal. But I would say within 18 months to maybe 2.5 years, you're naturally earmarked to start your courses to be promoted. So it's not time barred promotion where you get it after you're guaranteed it after a certain time. You've got to pass some horrendous exams. And but here's the thing. All of a sudden, I become financially motivated because and it's amazing how being financially motivated can force you to study. So you get 2 books, we call them précis, the ring binders, and they're 3 inches thick. And one's on police duties, all about law and definitions and things, and one's on provo ops. You know, how to use a 321, how to use a 320. They're I can't remember what they were called, but they were radios. In the back of a Land Rover, and one was more mobile than the other. You know, you'd have to ask a Staley back for a bit more detail on that. But that's all I remember. And then how to put them up. But the military police had an important role during wartime, despite our life expectancy only being 4 minutes. But
you just had to make good with that time.
But it was our job to plot out the routes for tanks and for convoys and stuff. So we had to be on the lookout for culverts and low-hanging wires and stuff. And you'd be given a route, and you'd have to plot that route on a map. And then you'd go out in your Land Rover and you would do this route recce, and you'd be looking for different things. So you're in pairs. So when I was being examined on this practical side, one guy's a lad's driving me from who's also, he'll get tested when I drive for him, but he's driving me. I'm telling him what to do, and I've got a sergeant in the back who's examining me. You know, and it's tough. You know, you can't afford to miss anything, and flipping out, I got through it first time. I don't know. The amount of money that the increase from lance corporal to corporal was significant.
Yeah, I know.
Especially when they live in overseas allowance.
Yeah, that was like in the engineers, you do a course and you get special pay.
We never got that, and I don't know why. But it was a bugbear. We can't talk about that, Joe. Trade pay, yeah. We used to give it to you a lot.
Corps of Royal Engineers, mate. That's what it is.
Yeah, trade pay.
All due respect to the RMPs, I know we take the mick out of you, but you do a good job. And I remember I remember at 3 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday, we thought it was a great laugh, running down Osnabrück with some wheelie bins, and and were we drunk? Yes, of course we were. And we weren't doing any harm, but the German police got us. And the first thing I said was, Royal Military Police, please.
Yeah.
And you dug us out of it because we were going down.
I tell you, I've been to police cells, German police cells before now, and I've seen soldiers handcuffed by their ankles to benches.
Yeah.
You know, stuff that we would never do and wouldn't be allowed to do. But I don't know, the Germans just have. They just problem solve, don't they?
Yeah, and I must say that it probably was a problem for them at that time.
No.
Not that I've ever done it again, of course. So you've served in Dusseldorf. You're already lining up your career, and you're thinking you've lined all these letters out. You're sending them out. So what's happening?
So I'm keep getting these letters back. Because one of the things was, you see, I was trying to not take the police entrance exam again. So I was because one of the questions you got when you try and join the police is, have you ever applied to a force before? So I answer honestly, yes, tried to join Cheshire, 87. So they would then write to Cheshire to get details of how I fared. Yeah. Now, even though I passed the police entrance exam in Cheshire in 87, I failed other exams. And when this time, forces had the ability to just seek out the cream of the cream, and I was sour. They didn't flipping want me, so I just kept getting these brown, little brown envelopes, vanilla envelopes, with a letter in there. Like I had quite a rude term for it, but it's just a dear John saying, "We don't want you." Yeah. So. Just before I was posted, this is at the end of 1990 now, got posted in the new year of 91 to Colchester, I'd applied for Sussex. This was my sixth force, and I was getting a bit fed up, but I was prepared to go through all 43 before I would stop. And it was another one of these brown envelopes, and I thought, flipping hell, not again, And I opened it up, and they wrote to me, and they said, look, we've tried to get hold of Cheshire. They've now binned your records, which was the best thing that could have ever happened.
That's it then.
So we want to invite you for a police entrance exam. So as soon as I got posted to Colchester, I made arrangements to do my entrance exam in Essex, and I went to Chelmsford to do it. And I got through. I scraped through, but you see, the motivation was different. So for me, I would. You didn't have things like the internet and BBC Bite Size to refresh your mathematics and refresh your English. So I'm going to the library and I'm pulling books out to help me understand fractions and decimals and punctuation, just so I can present myself in the best possible way. Because I realised, this was my Achilles heel. I can lock up a bad person just like anyone, with the best of them. But as a brand, as a package, you've got to sell yourself in a way where you're very attractive. And I wanted to try and put myself out there in the best possible way.
And I know in conversational wise that we're just chatting to each other. The actual model of the story can sometimes be lost, can't it? So it's about putting the graft in, isn't it? It's about putting the mileage in, doing the extra stuff, and not accepting that, dear John, sorry, we can't have you.
No, because I had people then who are now depending on me. So I had a family, and I couldn't let them down, but I didn't want to let myself down. And I knew, just give me the chance. I can do this job, but just give me the chance. I'll prove it to you. And it was just convincing them. I just wanted the opportunity to get in front of them for that interview. And so, I got through the entrance exam, and then a number of months, it felt like an age. It was probably nearly 12 months later, 92, early 92, I get invited to Sussex for a 2-day weekend of interviews and aptitude tests. And the first day is all about group work, and you're talking in groups. You're being assessed. There's 3 assessors, and they throw a question into the mix, and you've got to talk about it and debate it. So they're looking at your communication skills. They're looking at your ability to reason. They're looking at your ability to stand your ground without being rude, but with respect, but still stand your ground, And all of a sudden, without realizing it, I've got a slight edge on people because I've got life experience. So I'm sat with some students who are coming straight out of university, and I'm used to talking to different people from different walks of life. I'm used to talking to people in stressful situations. And all of a sudden, having that life experience then starts to work for me.
And I know that you got married 4 weeks before you got posted, and it passed out your training. So now I know that it can be said that going from the military into the police, it's like public service, but there is still a transition, isn't there? Because you're going from, even though you're a Royal Military Police, it's 2 different lifestyles. How did that transition go for you and your family?
The transition into the police for me was easy. I was going from one uniformed organisation into another. Where I was going, there was lots of former military, from all different types of military, Navy, Air Force, and the Army. So you were, the brotherhood was still there. You were never on your own. And that common denominator, that common language that you spoke, all of a sudden was there.
What was the transition like for your wife?
I think for her, Yeah, I mean, I've never specifically asked the question, but I think for her, it was easier because we were back in the UK.
Yeah.
I mean, we only moved from Essex to Sussex,
Yeah.
but at least we weren't getting posted to Germany back
Yeah.
again or to Ireland. We were back in the UK. You know, a mother was only sort of like three and a half hours away, but my wife and I, we've never had a problem making friends in the community. And although that sometimes that can take some time to lay down the roots.
Mm.
And, we lived in we've got a police house in a lovely town called Lewes in East Sussex, and it's a medieval town, and it's famous. Although I hadn't realised, it's famous for the bonfire societies that are there, and they burn effigies of the Pope and burn effigies of other people who are in the news at the particular time. But it stems back to Guy Fawkes's time, you know. And I can't believe it's something so big back up, 300 miles away in the northwest. I'd never even heard of it, you know. But it was a lovely town. We had surrounded by a lovely community. We were very fortunate and put down roots.
So, what was going on in your mind about career progression in the police then?
So, I got posted out to a small town called Seaford. I had a fantastic time there, learning my new job, and I had a really modern thinking sergeant who allowed me, even as a trainee constable, to go with the other youngster on the shift to do lots of plain clothes, go out and find crime, be proactive, and it was superb. But what happened at that time, I was working the Conservative Party conference when John Major was the Prime Minister in, I think it was 96. My son had been born in 94, so it might have even been 95. And he was diagnosed with autism. So we then made a decision that we wanted a bit more family support. So I decided to transfer to Cheshire and leave Sussex, and which was a shame from a career point of view because, I'd already done my junior CID course, and going into the CID was what I wanted. And moving to Cheshire was like stepping back 20 years. They weren't as forward thinking as Sussex, and that's even in terms of their equipment and also in their terms of their policy. So their force policies. So it was like stepping back to Dixon and Doc Green days, And
I've got to observe and point out, like, the language patterns that you use. Like, it's fantastic, it's great, it's a lovely village and everything. And people who, like, if you're listening and you think, oh, isn't Paul really lucky? And luck is labour under correct knowledge, as you know. And what was it that made you, for instance, if you fell in a bucket of SH1C, you come out smelling the roses? And it's not as simple as that, is it? What was your approach to life that made you want to see the best in the opportunity rather than the worst?
Well, for me, I was realizing a dream. I was realizing a dream that I probably thought really deep down I'd never ever get there. Nothing was going to stop me trying, but there's always a slight element of doubt. Will I ever get there? And I got there. And I still remember the end result of that 2-day interview back in 92 was me going to be measured for my uniform. And I'd got, I got the top half of the uniform on, which was a blue shirt. It was in those days, blue shirt, tie, tunic, car coat, and I put the helmet on. That was fantastic. Now, I could not believe that this was happening to me, but I also had plenty of reality checks around that time. So even going home, buzzing, because mobile phones didn't exist. No. I couldn't wait. I had to travel 2 hours to get back home to tell the missus how good it, the fact that we got through it. But as I'm driving over the Dartford Bridge, the big bridge that goes over the Dartford, not underneath, I think it's got a different name, but I'm listening to the radio, and people are being laid off at Dagenham, at Ford's.
Yeah.
And loads of people are losing their jobs. And I'm thinking, crikey, how lucky have I been to go from the military into the police service with 0 qualifications? And I'm just about to embark on a new journey, a new chapter of my life. I couldn't believe how lucky I was, but it was a sobering reality check for me that I'd worked for it, but I'd also, I suppose you make your own luck.
Yeah, you do.
To some extent, but I'm so glad I was motivated to do it, because if I'd have stopped everything on that first letter that I'd received to say you're not good enough, then I wouldn't. That moment would never have happened.
Yeah, so you just kept persevere, dedication, just keep sending them out until you get a yes. So you moved to Cheshire Police Force now for family reasons. You need support for your lovely son, and what's disappointing was Cheshire is 20 years behind.
It felt like that at the time, and I probably I don't want to be doing them an injustice, because they took me in,
and they did the best with what they had. They probably just had a different budget.
But it was just, it was a Shire force, and there was a certain element with Shire forces at that time that we've got to be seen as the typical British Bobby on the beat. Yeah. So I remember going down to police on mutual aid. So when you go and help another force with an issue, it's called mutual aid. And we went down to Birmingham to police a G8 summit. And we are the Cheshire contingent. We're covering 2 lanes of a dual carriageway. Greater Manchester Police, they've got the other 2 lanes of a dual carriageway. Now, Cheshire, we're dressed up in normal uniform with high-vis jackets and police helmets, your normal tall police helmet. And we're getting rotten fruit thrown at. I got meloned in the shoulder by the protesters. GMP, they're putting on PSU kit, crash helmets and pads and overalls. And it was just a different thinking. With Cheshire Police, we can't be seen to be paramilitary.
And what effect did that have on the morale?
It was a little bit uncomfortable at the time, but the big sea change was health and safety legislation.
Yeah.
Because that came in. So by the time we started to work the runway at Manchester Airport, when that was being built, the second runway, health and safety legislation came in that that meant we had to be dressed in public service unit equipment. So we walked around in the overalls with the pads on, with the stab-proof vest, with your gadget belt, with your baton and your cuffs, and your helmet and visor, and
the melon-proof shoulder pads.
yeah. But the thing was, all of a sudden, but no one cared. It was great for us, but no one cared, and so I think it was a bit of an anticlimax, really. But I think there was always a fear that the public would see us in a different way.
Yeah.
I don't really think they did. Maybe I've got that wrong, but I don't really think they did, because we still wore that type of ordinary uniform when we walked around on the beat and drove around in cars. It was only when you were in public order situations you were equipped properly.
So from the 80s and more so the 90s and then the noughties, what sort of sea change did you see in, without any operationally sensitive stuff, what sort of sea change, because we'll come on to what else you did you see in public behaviour?
I think there's always been an element of the community that I've got great respect for the police, and the job we do, and the fact it's an appointment, and and people haven't got any need to fear us. But likewise, on the other hand, there's always an element where people are very suspicious. They think we are corrupt, and the issues that happened in the 70s when certain investigations were proven to be, or the investigation was deemed to be corrupt, and there was corrupt practices going on. You know, those incidents, those investigations haunted the police for decades. And you know, but the service has worked really hard to try and prove itself that we can be trusted.
And I mean, the majority of police, the vast majority, male, female, are great.
Yeah,
it's only the minority, and you know what? Police are no different than society.
Yeah. Unfortunately, you know, you can have the most stringent recruitment process, but you're always going to get people who will have a corruption side to them, or a corrupt side to them, and that could be motivated for many different reasons. You know, finance, their ideology, or whatever. You know.
So, thank you. You're in Cheshire. They're bringing themselves up to date now. You've got all the kit.
Yeah.
And you're getting there. So what are you looking at now with your career?
So I decided, after about 9 or so years on the beat, I decided that, you know, I wanted a career in crime. This was
not actually committing it, but
a career investigating it. Yes. Well done. Good. Well done, Joe. You're listening. You bastard. Well, a career investigating crime, and I got to experience working on a real. It was a national operation, and unfortunately, the operation, for whatever reason, never came off. But it would have been big if it had done. But I saw a world that I liked, and it was a world that a lot of police officers, you know, after 30 years would never see. It was more involved in the intelligence side, informants, and the technical, and I wanted to be a part of that. And I was then starting to work out, well, how can I get into that? And at the time, I was doing a role in Cheshire, which people would recognise. You've heard of the interceptors on the television. So uniformed police officers driving high performance, unmarked cars, and they are looking at the top tier of criminals, to some extent, organised crime within their force boundary. And that's what we were doing in the late 90s in Cheshire. And so I decided to go into the CID and train to be a detective. And you know, that forced me then to have to start studying again, because there's a national detective exam you've got to pass. It was a flipping pain in the neck studying. I think the reason why I moan a little bit about studying is, I think looking at it now with great hindsight, is I'm an undiagnosed dyslexic.
Yeah.
And that's come about with my daughter being diagnosed when she was going through university. And it suddenly dawned on me, well, you know, there's common denominators there that I'm seeing in myself. And it was just never picked up at school. And if it had, things might have been flipping different. And I'm sure there's lots of people out there similar to me in my age group who have struggled. But so I decided to go into the CID, and I did that, did 5 years. And then I was being encouraged by my detective sergeant to start thinking about promotion. And we're back on the flipping hamster wheel again. Studying, it's 6 months worth of studying. Failed it the first time, got through the second for the sergeants. Then that's your part one, that's your written exam, and then the practical, failed the practical and got it through the second time. Then 2006, I start doing some acting, and then that acting leads then to me being, I go through the promotion board, I get promoted in 2007.
And that's acting rank.
Acting sergeant
rather than acting on telly.
Yes, that's it. Yeah, acting sergeant, and then in 2007, I become a substantive sergeant back at Chester. So, and then 2008, I made a detective sergeant, and I then go into the intelligence world. as a on the system side, which was I then all of a sudden I found my niche. I loved intelligence.
Now, intelligence is an interesting subject, isn't it? And
Yeah.
the stuff you get up to is fabulous.
Yeah, you are in a position where you're party to all the proactive operations within the force, and that is the high level stuff. If you've got a policing purpose to be read into those operations, and so you've got because no matter what you do in the police world, you need a stream of intelligence. You could be a nominated intelligence officer to feed into that operation.
And what sort of stuff, just out of interest, well, I've got a good idea anyway, what sort of stuff can you find out without giving too much away?
I can't answer that, Joe, I'm afraid. I don't think.
I just thought I'd ask.
So a lot of what you see on the television, to some extent, although there's a lot of drama around, but a lot of the stuff you see on the television is not far away.
Yeah.
But
it just fascinates me, and I'll bring you out the hole that I put you in. It fascinates me.
The best thing, and which I probably can talk about, is in police informants. So known on the street as grasses, but they're known in the police world as covert human intelligence sources, or CHISs.
Yeah.
So so when I was in Sussex, I had informants working for me. The rules were very different. So I had a lady who was a prostitute working for me. I say working for me, informing for me.
Yeah.
And but I also had people who were heroin addicts who were telling me stuff. And based on what they told me, they potentially could be paid for it on results.
And you have to be very careful. I know we discussed this, because if you nick the people they're informing on straight away, they could be in deep down sticky stuff, couldn't they?
Right. Well, let me give you a sort of a textbook sort of example. If I receive some intelligence that there's a gun under the bed of a bloke called Joe O'Connor,
which he doesn't, by the way.
No, but we go and kick his door in to recover the gun under a firearms warrant. We haven't taken into consideration where that intelligence has come from. We could be putting that source of that intelligence at risk. And let's say, for argument's sake, that the only person knows where that gun is his wife, and it's his wife who've told the police through Crime Stoppers. Then all of a sudden, his wife then becomes there's a risk to his wife.
Target.
Yeah. So my job was all about the risk management of intelligence. We get lots of good intelligence coming across my desk, but it's how can we act on it? We have a duty of care to protect the public, but we've also got a duty of care to protect where the intelligence comes from. And it's finding that balance, and it's problem solving that risk. And it was very difficult at some stage. Sometimes it's very difficult. Immensely rewarding, if you did find the drugs, if you did prevent the burglary happening, or you did get, the gun back.
Because I can imagine, like, you've got your finger on the trigger, so to speak, and you can't squeeze it because there's ramifications to what would happen.
It's just not straightforward. Like just going to kick the door in and let's go and get the gun. You've got to think about, you've got to be protecting your informants, because if your informants realise that the police don't care about you and they will sell you out, you'll never have anyone talking to you.
Yeah. So that was a very interesting development in your career. And, what's going on in your mind now about index?
So I was an established detective sergeant at this stage. I'd already done a number of different times in the intelligence world, acting as inspector, because this goes back to that determination and that passion. It took me 4 times to pass the inspector's exam, but I got through it eventually. and they were short of an inspector. They were short of a detective inspector in the department, and I got the opportunity to go temporary. And I spent the last 16 months, I think it was, as a DI, working in the Force Intelligence Bureau, which was my department, along with a number of other inspectors, sergeants, and police staff. There's quite a few of us, up to the point I retired.
And it's interesting how you got appointed to that, because I believe your boss just come and looked and said, we need someone in this, and we can't just put any Tom, Dick, or Harry in.
The problem is, you see, you can't just learn it overnight. The experience I'd built up over 6 or 7 years, in terms of managing risk and understanding the procedures and the policies we had in place in the department. So it wasn't just a case of bringing someone in. Let's promote within. Yeah. And this is the problem with small forces. It's dead easy for the Met and Merseyside and Greater Manchester because they're so big. Small forces promoting within departments was not something that they liked to do back in my day. So, but it made good business sense to make me an inspector to keep that knowledge inside the department rather than lose it.
So what would you put, I'll ask this question in clear. I know we have covered it. I just want to be succinct with it and deliberate. What's the secret of your success, do you think?
I would say a dogged determination not to fail. If you cannot do something, if the journey from A to B is not straightforward, find a workaround. I've mentioned about failing the exams, but it's a case of picking yourself up, dusting yourself down, and cracking on and trying again. Sometimes it's not your fault why you failed, but you just got to keep going.
Yeah, and you've talked about the importance of having a good social network, and I mean, in your career, how important was it to you to have a good coach and mentor, someone who give you the kick up the bum or an arm around the shoulder?
It is important, and when I was a PC, it wasn't seen as the dumb thing to start talking about your feelings. So I went to I picked my words carefully, but going back to Christmas 94, I think it was, me and the other guy I worked with, my sort of regular partner, there was only 3 months service between us, but we were still probationers. We went to do a welfare check on an old guy, and there was no answer from the door. The only when we knocked on the door, the only thing we had to do was boot the door in and do a physical check. We got the permission to do it, and then we go in. So I said to my mate, who was also called Paul, I'll open the door, you look in. He says, no, you open the door, I'll open the door, you look in the house. We'll both do it together. Because we were expecting possibly going to be strung up or something like that, And yeah, we went into this house was on 3 floors. It was a terraced house, 3 floors. And we searched the bottom, no problems. As soon as we started walking up, the smell hit us. And the poor guy, he died about 3 weeks possibly beforehand. He was in a bad state of decomposition, and it wasn't nice to deal with. Now, in today's world, you would retreat. The underwater search team with respirators would go in, and they would do the necessary and sorting the scene out. But back in '94, it was me and my mate searching the house. And the undertakers had what they call disaster packs for this thing that would kill the maggots, and it was horrendous. The point I'm getting to is about 2 weeks later now, Christmas is gone, the New Year's gone, and I'm in the smoking room, because smoking in police stations you just stop, but they designated a room, the police station, you go and smoking. I wasn't a smoker, but if I didn't go in there, I'd have no one to talk to. So I'm in the smoking room with Paul, and I'd been having flashbacks and of back in that scene, you see, back in flashbacks to the body. And I said to Paul very carefully, I said, you know, because I hadn't experienced anything like that in the military. And I know lots of soldiers go to war zones and they get that experience, but I hadn't had it. So I said, you know, that sudden death we went to before Christmas, have you thought about that at all? Have you thought about what we did and the scene? And you might be doing something at home, reading the book or watching television, you just think about it. He says, oh yeah, I have actually. And I thought, thank goodness for that, because once I realized I wasn't on my own in experiencing this, then I realized it was my way of my psyche or my mind healing itself. Yeah, processing. So go forward 20 years, I'm now a sergeant with young cops under me, and I was able to use that experience to help them, because they were in a generation where they wanted to talk about their feelings.
Yeah.
You know, where it was accepted to talk about their feelings. And I felt more able to help them than I suppose that I had at the time.
And you touched on it, because obviously the anti of success is failure. And I don't believe you failed unless you give up. So you already touched on the fact that you just keep going. How do you deal with failure? What process have you got to overcome it?
I don't really deal with it, I suppose, particularly well. So initially that feeling of being down and a bit angry, you know, but I think there's a process you have to get through. And once you get through that, then you're able to sort of understand and maybe drill down as to what happened and find out why, and then put a plan forward to start again.
Thank you. And what's the one tip, the biggest tip that you give to someone either leaving the military, leaving employment, wanting to start a career? Because we're going to talk about what you do now in a second. What's the one tip that you give someone that you think is really important?
Well, I think you need to decide what you want to do. Have a plan, and decide how you want to get there and who's going to help you get there. Don't necessarily try to do it on your own. Sometimes you might not have a choice, but support is great if you can get it. But stick to the plan.
Thank you. And
I'm being generic on purpose, trying to so it fits a multitude.
Yeah. No, that's great. So have a plan, focus, and if you can, you don't need to do it on your own. Bring in coaches, mentors, someone who maybe is already trodden.
Accountability partners. Yeah.
And how transferable do you think the skills are in the military that you
learn? Massive. I mean, it's a small example, it could be even a silly example, but you know what it's like when you're in the military and you're told to turn up on parade. You know what would happen if you were ever late or you failed to be there.
Oh yeah.
And I think every military person recognizes the ability to be prompt and on time. The amount of stories I hear about tradesmen who have made appointments to turn up, to go to someone's house, to do some work, and they've just never showed. You know, they get a terrible reputation, and it's as if they just don't care. Having that ability to, when you say I'm going to do something and you do it, it is a massive value and an advantage. So that's just one silly example of transferable skills. The fact that we're reliable. I mean,
and also building on that, because sometimes stuff happens, right? Which means you can't do it. But instead of just staying stum and letting the person who thinks you're coming,
Yeah, you ring them up.
So you ring them up and you say, look,
Yeah,
it's not going to plan. Here we go, like a
yeah,
sit bet.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So it's just about being reliable, isn't it?
yeah, and and then there's so there's that you could call that professionalism, but you could call that personal responsibility.
Mm.
So and a lot of I think a lot of the skills that we learn in the forces, you just don't realize you've got them, and you've got to start thinking a little bit out of the box. You think about your day job and what you do, and what you're you're doing it unconscious. What can you pull out of that? What skills and abilities can you pull out of that you can bring into civilian life?
Because yeah, exactly. Because I've known for a long time there's more than one 5 o'clock in the day, in 24 hours. And I don't think that the
Yeah.
youngsters, I'm sounding old now, I don't think the youngsters will quite grasp that, have they? So,
Yeah.
listen, right, so you leave now is the big transition because it was seamless from the military to the police. How did
Yeah,
you,
for me it was, yeah.
how did you get on from the police to civil?
So it was a bit more difficult. I the job I did, people knew me all from all over the force, from high ranking officers down to the frontline staff. So a lot of responsibility. I spent the last 11 years as a hostage crisis negotiator, working the front line with people in crisis and hostage situations as well. So all of a sudden, I go from being well known and respected to now being told my wife's my supervisor and I've just been promoted to taking the bins out. And I'm thinking my life's come to an end. And because
that's a fairly important responsibility, that taking the bin.
Well, as far as my wife's concerned, yeah, and she said, "Oh God, I'd be moving up to hoovering within a month." but the thing was, I retired at 51, and in the police, you pay 40 years worth of pension contributions over a 30-year period. My military service massively helped to that, so it meant I could retire at 51, and I on my last day was still at work at 5 o'clock, hanging on to the door frame while my boss was trying to say, "You got to go. You're flipping retired." And I said I didn't want to go, and I love the job so much, and I don't want to give you the impression that I was, the old army saying "army barmy."
Yeah.
I was probably a little bit like that with the police, but I still had family values and believed in family values, and my family was really, really important to me. But that my personal identity I felt was going to be lost after leaving, and that's what I struggled with. And I for a good week or so, I was a bit mopey, a bit moping around. In some respects, we went straight into, within 2 weeks of me retiring, we went into lockdown in March 2020. So that stopped me from doing stuff and maybe knee-jerk reactions into different things. It gave me the time then to make a decision and a plan, as I've already sort of mentioned. What do I want to do? What do I need to achieve? How am I going to get there? What's my route plan? And then I started to, well, I've been into photography for, at that time, over 10 years. Could I turn this hobby into a business? How could I monetize it? And that's what I spent that time doing.
And instead of using or viewing the isolation and the solitude of lockdown as the end of the world because you couldn't communicate with people in a traditional sense, what you actually did was used it as a time of reflection to plan your next course of action.
Yes, yeah, absolutely, that's and I made so many mistakes.
Welcome to the club.
Yeah, made so many mistakes during that time because I just thought it was easy, because I'd never run a business. I had no experience of, other than when I was golfing, when I was as an assistant golf pro, but I was working in the business. I wasn't working on the business. So I didn't really understand it. And I thought it would be pretty simple. I built myself a website. and get some business cards printed, and I'll wait for the phone to ring, and it never did.
Yeah, and I mean, I've been I went through that procedure. Well, I've been through a few times. 1988 when I got out, and then became a financial advisor just after the financial crash in '87, which was a great time to start.
Yeah.
And then again, you look at 1991, 92, when you were coming out and joining the police, that was a tough time. Interest rates went up to 17%.
Yeah.
Then we had 2008, and we had the dot-com boom, and I'm in business as a financial advisor all this time. And what I've discovered, probably the same as you with your criminal investigation team and your intelligence, you just gain stuff, information, where I've got clients now, and when they call me about a dip in, like, for instance, what's going on now in the world, and it doesn't matter whether people listen to this in 10 years' time, 20 years' time, or tomorrow. When you use the term what's going on now in the world, there's always something going on in the world. And it's interesting, you do a website, you get your business card, you wait by the phone, and then you realize it doesn't happen. So what are you doing now with your photography business, and how can people get in touch? Tell me.
All right. So I am now a professional branding, headshot and portrait photographer.
Fantastic.
My business is called Paul's Portraits. And I've been in business now just over 5 years. Yeah, in my
fabulous. Congratulations.
Yeah, so still going. A lot of my success is down to business networking, and that is businesses getting together and helping each other, finding referrals and leads. And again, it goes back to that support structure. My job generally is quite lonely. I'm on my own. But you need help, and you need accountability and advice, and I get it from the wider business community. They're not photographers, they are accountants, they are digital marketers, they're business coaches. They come from all different sectors, but we're in a lovely group, and we have a can do, and we want to help each other, so
it's about bouncing ideas off each other, because each of us in business have got contacts. And and once you get to know, and trust people, because I run the Transformer Business Network, in that group, we know that we can trust each other.
Absolutely.
And we open our book and say, okay.
Yeah, building that know, like, and trust is really important. I mean, I first came across that in crisis negotiation, know, like, and trust, and then you're able to influence people's behaviour. But when I first realised it also existed within the business world, I was quite surprised. But it is. People will not refer you on a whim. They won't pass you on to one of their contacts or clients unless they know that you are a safe pair of hands. So it's all about forging relationships, and not just a one-off and then never see someone again for 12 months. You've got to nurture those relationships. Networking is the long game, but it does pay dividends.
Yeah.
I was contacted by a guy that I was networking with, him and his wife 4 years ago, and he still had the peace of mind to come back to me this week and ask me for a quote.
Oh, wow.
Because of all the work that was done in nurturing that relationship 4 years ago.
Yeah. So you never know what's around the corner. Well, listen, what's the future hold for you now then?
Well, I've just turned 56. I am happy. Yeah, I'm happy as I am. Keep going. I love taking photographs. I love having my own business. The longer I am in business and working for myself, the harder it is for me to want to go back to do a more corporate role. And I, at this moment in time, I'm happy to keep going. I'm fortunate. I've got a pension. I don't necessarily need to be earning loads of money to stay afloat. So I've got the best of both worlds, really. Yeah. So for me at the moment, I want to get to 60, and then that's when I do a review.
Fabulous. So it's always about planning ahead, focusing on what you want, and then just going for it, and just realizing that it doesn't always go to plan. Paul Wilcock, Wilco, Thank you very much for your time. Thank you for your service. And
Yeah,
thank
you're
you for
welcome.
being an interesting guest.
Yeah, thank you.
And remember, if you want to learn about how you can network or lots and lots of stuff about business strategies, then visit joelteams.com. That's JOETEAMS.com, joelteams.com, where you can find out loads of stuff, get your hands on resources for the price of a couple of cups of coffee per month. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day. Thank you. JoelTeams.com is a resource I have created to fulfill my mission to help 1 million veterans and business entrepreneurs like you achieve the goals, dreams, and aspirations they deserve. JoelTeams.com is jam-packed full of valuable resources specifically designed to help you on your journey to success. Visit JoelTeams.com now to find out how you can join and start your journey to success immediately. That's joelteams.com, JOETEAMS, joelteams.com. And until we meet again, have a brilliant day.